Welcome, everybody, to the Creature Cast, the official Console Creatures podcast. My name is David Petrangelo, and I am one of your hosts for all things video games this week, and the three of us are together. I'm sorry I just missed the recording last week, but I talked about Dave the Diver, and I just told the guys before we hit record, I'm still playing it. I'm not going to talk about it this week, or maybe I'll talk about it when I wrap the whole thing up, but it's a hell of a game, so if you didn't hear it last week, I will reiterate. Great game. Dave the Diver. 1 million sales apparently as well, so it's doing pretty well. Probably doesn't need my thumbs up. Seems like everyone's playing it. So anyways, enough about me. Bobby, editor extraordinaire at consolecreatures.com. How are you?
I'm doing super fine.
Ooh,
is that a word? Can we use that? Super fine.
We're taking it. We're using it.
Let's use it. I'm good.
Let's use it.
It's been
Steve.
Yeah.
I'm doing really well. I'm glad to have you back on the show. In the host chair, leading the charge. It's great to have us all back in one podcast after what feels like a long time. I don't know why.
I know. Well, I was out for a couple weeks, and then I guess we did it a couple weeks ago. But Bobby came in late, and then last week was like, "Am I coming? Am I not?" And anyways, we're all here, so it's all good. We got some good games to talk about. So let's not beat around the bush too much, Steve. We've both been playing Oxenfree 2 Lost Signals. Yeah, we both got codes for this. So thank you for that, for sending those along to us. But I think that for me, my full review, or at least most of my thoughts, I would say, because I think I'm still thinking about this game, are on consolecreatures.com. That review has gone up this week. And this is a great forum for us to sort of hash out some of the other ideas or expand on ideas that are written down in a review. And I didn't realize you were playing it, Steve, so this is a pleasant surprise that I actually get to discuss it rather than I assumed I was going to come in this week and just talk to you guys, essentially, because I can probably talk about this game for the entire hour of the show. But I guess I'll start with you, Steve. Like, going into this game, whether it's based off the original game, coming into this, like, where was your mind at when you were before you hit play on this?
So I guess to kick things off, I don't blame you whatsoever for not knowing I was even playing this. It was so funny. We were recording last week, and Bobby and I were just like shooting the shit at the end of the show, just kind of talking about games that were like on the precipice of coming out. And I was like, we're listing games, and I was like, there's one that neither of us had brought up. And I went to like my calendar because I can't, have a list of like all the upcoming games and everything. I was like, oh, Oxenfree is just around the corner. So I reached out, got my code late. So I haven't put in as much time as you have. But I came to this discussion with a lot of thoughts. Because the first game I adored. I think I played it 2 or 3 times through, because that game has the multiple different endings, the different choices through dialogue, the different kind of relationships you can build throughout that game. I adore it. I love the vibe. The music is astounding from that first game. So despite me forgetting it was right around the corner, I was anticipating this. I think anticipating it not only because it's a sequel to what I think is like a very darling indie game, but also because it's in my opinion, the first big Netflix game. I mean, they acquired Night School Studio, and this is their first big like breakout, like this is them showing up to the party, so to speak, not just delivering another mobile phone.
They've been involved with this studio longer than some of the others, like you said, like even oh my god, why am I forgetting? Immortality is on Netflix, but the game is already done. There's mobile games, like you said, like those. It seems different. Like, no, they weren't there from day one when they began this game. It was supposed to come out in 2020 or 21, and then COVID hits, and then they get acquired by Netflix, and like that's so in some ways it's kind of understandable that you maybe didn't have the date specifically in your mind of when it's coming out, because it's been pushed for at least 2 years. So it's been a bit of a journey to get to this point. So
and getting into the game, I think this is a very proper and masterful sequel to what is already a very great base game. Coming into it, I think that it's almost like a very smooth transition from just the vibe and the overall atmosphere of Oxenfree to Oxenfree 2. The characters kind of fit the universe. Like I do like how it's not essential to play the first game, and I know we're probably going to talk about a little bit of the story elements, but coming into this game, like I forgot a lot about of Oxenfree 1. I didn't really remember
Right.
if this is a direct sequel, if this is like, you know, just something
There's an
loosely
offshoot
based
or
off the first
something.
one. Exactly. So I didn't really
Yeah.
know what exactly to expect from this game, but then they're referencing a lot of like core elements of the first game, and I was like, okay,
Yeah.
wait a minute. I'm remembering a lot of like the distinct like storytelling beats of the first one, and just the way that they kind of expand on it. I just really love the two new characters that we're introduced to, Riley and Jacob. Their chemistry, their voice acting goes. They're incredible in my opinion. But yeah, just evolving the mechanics, the gameplay in Lost Signals is really great. And then yeah, I just really love the map. I think just having that
Mm.
expanded kind of
Yeah.
playground to kind of go through and explore, learn the history behind it. This is a really solid game, and I think if you're playing it on really any platform, this is a must-play indie game in this kind of like lull period between, the Final Fantasies, the Diablos, and everything, and then everything that's coming in this summer. I think this is a game that, I mean, I'm curious to know about your runtime, but I estimate that I'll probably be done my first playthrough with like around 5 hours clocked, and then you can kind of obviously go for the different endings and everything. But I think that's totally obtainable, a perfect like weekend game, like a cottage game if you're heading up to the cottage at some point this summer. Yeah, this is a game that I think play it before it kind of gets lost in the sauce from everything else that's coming out this year.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's actually a perfect, like you said, you play this on a weekend. You got a couple weekends. If you're a Baldur's Gate fan, that's coming pretty soon, or at least on PC, it got bumped up and stuff. So I hope this doesn't get buried in the mess because there's a lot of really big games that have been out over the last couple of months. Not everybody can finish those within a week or two, and those drag on. I mean, not in a bad way. They're just large games and they're great games, so people want to keep playing them. Yeah, I think this. I walk into this with the first Oxenfree being one of my favorite storytelling games of all time, one of my favorite indie games of all time. I just love. Like, I came to it, I think 2 or 3 years after it was released, and was like, "Holy crap! This thing just like blew me away." I just around that time, in 2016 when it came out, 2018 probably when I played it on PS4, I was really like realizing, oh, I'm actually a really big fan of like thrillers, whether it's a TV show or a movie, and I never gave them as much of a chance as I probably should have previous to that.
Yeah,
And this isn't like a scary thriller, but there's a lot of supernatural thriller like elements in it. It's definitely not here to scare you, but it has vibes like that, like you said, and the music is a perfect example of what leads into that. So I think it hit at the right time too. I think I sort of like had this epiphany realization type thing for that type of media in general, not even just for games. So that was great, and I absolutely love the story and love the way it looked. The voice acting was amazing. The writing is, and both of those things, especially to me, the writing and the voice acting in Oxenfree 2 is, I just I can't believe how real it feels that these two characters, like I could be watching a movie or a TV show based on how they interact, and
for
it's
sure.
it's just it's amazing to me. Like, it really is amazing, and that's not. I mean, it is very much the actors and them doing an incredible job with what they're given for sure, but also on a technical level. When you're presented with a choice as Riley and you want to click one of three answers, the way that it's programmed that you may or may not cut someone off during a conversation, it still feels natural and sounds natural. And that has got to be very difficult to pull off
Yep.
because it could be a really long-winded thing that, especially the character like Jacob, he kind of goes off on these existential like tangents, which I love. I love those moments. Um, and Riley, every once in a while, you can pipe in and either say nothing, or you can say yes or no, or a longer answer or whatever. And you can choose to almost do it at any time. And the game knows, like, is basically programmed to interject when it would feel more natural. And then there would be a response back to that. And it's just a conversation.
So one point, because I totally agree, and I think that the audio design and the way that they kind of incorporate that dialogue is just incredible because I was so worried. And a lot of these games, a lot of these like dialogue heavy games, you almost fear pressing that button like in the midst of a character talking, because you're like, okay, am I going to cut something off? Am I going to like cut myself off a choice or something?
Right.
It was the first time you go in, and it's not a spoiler, you go into Jacob's cabin and you're kind of just like exploring around, and he's talking to you, and I accidentally clicked something, and I was like, oh man, like I do want to cut him off and everything.
Want to hear what he had to say. Yeah.
Exactly. And she, you kind of like remark at something around the house, and he responds, but then instantly he's like, so anyways, and he goes back to what he was talking about immediately before that. I was like, oh, okay. And the same thing with progressing from like one section of the map to the next. That was another part where I was like, well, I don't want to progress through and like hit a load screen and then the dialogue just like cut out or something, because like I'm very engaged in these conversations. So anyways, I'm just standing there, and on the screen, like there's a little icon that says conversation will continue. Like as you hit I was like, they've thought of everything, because that, I think for such a strong like story and dialogue heavy game, it would be such a detriment to be like, okay, I'm going to progress the game. I'm just playing this, naturally and freely, but then I'm, removing myself out of this conversation.
Yeah, exactly. And that could happen you could accidentally, like you said, press something. And honestly, like I browsed over a couple of reviews earlier today just to see what other people thought and whatever. And there's some sort of like, not complaints, I would say, but some notes that people made where it's just like, it seems like the conversations are too long or too drawn out, or they not all of them are meaningful. But I like that. I like that not all the conversations are going to change the direction of the story or of that scene. I like the fact that these multiple characters, whether it's in person or over the walkie-talkie, are talking, and you have the moments in between to get to know these people as to why you want to make certain decisions with those individuals later on in the game. And those decisions later mean something. No spoilers, but they mean something, and something may or may not happen. That's what these kinds of games are like anyway, so that's kind of expected. But you take your relationship with these people into account when those decisions become evident, because you have a history with them from 3 hours prior or over the course of the last 3 or 4 hours. And I just think it's just like masterful writing. And I honestly, this game is worth it just for the voice acting, I think, because I just think it's that good. I really do think that it is the best, if not one of the best performances across the board that I have ever heard in my life. And, there's different versions of really good voice acting. There's different reasons to have certain types of writing that lead into the acting or vice versa. Like, but I think what was given to them on paper, so to speak, and then what they say into the microphone is just some of the best I have ever heard ever. So,
and I think just kind of jumping from that to I love the themes of this game, and I think that's something that's very relatable, despite the fact that there are like very creepy vibes and some supernatural elements to this. I think just the core theme of like reconnecting with your childhood, facing trauma, like connecting with people that you went to like high school with, and kind of growing up. And you're talking about some of like maybe people have concerns or comments about overdrawn conversations and everything, but these are two characters that have a moderate history with each other, like dating back all the way to high school. They're reconnecting at a very different point in their life. I think that's something we can all kind of relate to. Like, I mean, as we're all like in our 30s now, like there's always going to be that person that you bump into maybe, or online or in real life, and you're like, wow, I haven't talked to you since I was like in high school at 18. Like, how the hell have you been?
Only one of you remembers each other,
Exactly.
Hey, which is kind of what happens in this. Like,
for sure,
Riley sort of maybe knows who he is, but he has to kind of remind her. And like, I think that I could listen to the two of them have those types of discussions for this entire game, but those sort of like larger moments, whether it's from discussion or whether it's from some of the interactions you have with your radio, again, just like you do in the first, or talking to people for certain reasons on the walkie-talkie, like those elements come into play and do some pretty cool things in this. there's some things you run into in the sort of in the supernatural way with your radio and other elements that are familiar from the first, because you are close to Edwards Island where the first one is, and I'll just leave it at that. So there's some stuff there, but it does enough different and in different ways, and obviously in a different setting, that I think there's enough there that, especially if you're really into the first one like I was, I found the decision to maybe lean a little bit less into the radio elements and scanning through channels and stuff. Like, you do have to do it a decent amount, but in the first one, that's pretty much the only thing that you do. Whereas in this, they expand upon it. It does different things for different reasons. And then there are other, I guess you could call them set pieces or action scenes, so to speak, that do more here. So if the first one, for example, felt a little too walk and talk and turn on your radio and that's it, this one adds other elements to it that will hopefully ease that disappointment, or if you're scared, if that's all it was, there's a little bit more here, and they're really well done. They're super cool set pieces that belong in a really great supernatural movie, and they just do a really good job of making it feel like a real thing in this story. So you being a few hours in, you've probably reached at least a couple of those, I think.
Oh yeah, big time. Like I would say probably close to the end, probably.
Yeah.
Judging by like how the story beats are kind of going, I know I'm towards the latter. Yeah.
My play time was probably 5.5 hours.
Okay.
And it's probably not going to vary too much. I know there's obviously there's endings, and there's certain ways you talk to people that will change the length of the game or change what happens, like you mentioned, especially like it's just similar to the first one, but I think they're more impactful this time, and you are more directly involved with what happens or doesn't happen to other people, whereas I think in the first that maybe there's a couple branching paths kind of thing. I'll have to refresh my memory on that a little bit, but you are a little bit more involved with what happens with other people in this. And
I think with the first one, at least, it was very much you're affecting more the relationships between characters rather than what happens like at the end of the game. Which is interesting to know. Like with this game, I do love that idea that you are more involved just by virtue of not only the dialogue but the gameplay as well. Like the things that you're doing are impacting the game. But it's always funny. It always comes down to you're talking to Jacob, or not spoiling anything, like other characters, and then you'll see the little icon like your face, and I'm like, did something right. Hell yeah.
So that's actually a question I have about that, because this was something that popped up in a discussion when the Walking Dead games came out, when Telltale started making those, and you had the choice of whether you made a decision and so remembered this, or this was impactful because you made this decision. For me, I turned that off when I played those games, because I didn't want to know what was impactful and what wasn't. I was more immersed in it, because when I'm having a discussion with you guys, for example, if I say something that offends you, either you're gonna say something back to me, or you know what I mean, like, or it could be an action or whatever. But that's how life plays out, and it was a story based and relationship based game, just like this is. So I turned those off, and I found that myself to be much more attached to the characters and to my decisions. And this is sort of in between, right? You have that little bubble that pops up, but you don't know how it affects that person or how it affects your relationship. It just tells you that you made a decision, and then something will branch off from there, for example. But it's all
interesting.
It's all done behind the scenes. Otherwise, you don't know. I mean, maybe you'll know by the response that you get, but how that plays out later is not really displayed, which I like. I like that. 100%. It puts you more in the shoes of the characters that you're playing as. So
no, absolutely. Now I am playing Riley as like a more kind-hearted person towards Jacob. So every time that you see her face, I'm like, oh, I did something good. But again, it's all relative to just like an affirmation of positivity, versus, because there was one time I accidentally pressed a wrong dialogue option, and it didn't give me like the face or anything, but Jacob gave me like a really snide response back to him. He's like, "Oh, why are you being sarcastic?" And I was like,
Right.
My dude, my homie, I'm not trying to be. There was an accident. I'm sorry." So it's interesting that so have you experienced that same thing, like with the negative reaction? You'll still get the face. Is that kind of the
Yeah, I even got a reaction because there was a couple times where, because in a lot of these games when you have dialogue options, not like Red Dead or Mass Effect or stuff where basically you can sit there as long as you want and decide.
right?
Not in every game, but that's usually the default anyway in those types of games. In this, you have a certain amount of time. Those 2 or 3 bubbles will pop up and then they start fading away. And you have, usually it's like 7 seconds or something to kind of make your decision. A couple times I was like, yeah, this one feels right. Maybe that one feels right. You know what? I'll just leave it. And then I think once or twice it still was, an impactful thing to not say anything at all. You
Sure.
almost every time, I would say 80% of the time, unless it's really supposed to be like a key story moment, you have the choice of saying nothing, and just sort of sit there in your thoughts or your silence. There's a couple points in this that I don't know what happens if you don't say anything, but there's one moment in particular that you may have hit already that you can choose to say something, and it's a big revealing moment, but you can choose not to say it at all. And
Right.
I'm very interested to see what happens there if
I
you
think I
don't
know
say
exactly
anything.
what you're saying. Yep.
Because
And
I almost didn't click it, because I was honestly afraid to.
sure.
Like I
Yeah.
didn't know what that was gonna do, and it was, yeah, it was, and that was, if anyone reads my review, there's an emotional moment for me in this, and it branched off of that moment. Like it came from like a very sort of welling tears sort of moment came during or just after that discussion in this moment that I'm talking about. And that's exactly why I was scared to click on it,
Yeah.
to actually, because it gives you one option, and you can choose to say it or you can choose to be silent. And I think that is an emotional decision, because at this point you've spent several hours with both of these characters. They've connected, which hopefully you've also connected with them. And now it's a matter of making a big decision that it seems like changes what happens in the next couple of scenes. And
Sure.
that kind of stuff I'll always remember in games, and this is just another one of them. Just add it to the list. So, yeah.
Well, I think it's
Yeah.
also very impactful when you go through the entire game and you're like, "Oh, 1, 2, or 3. Which one am I going to choose?" And then the
Yeah.
game gives you 1, and you're like,
Yes,
"Oh my
that
god,
too.
oh my god!" Like just seeing that, either I click this or I don't make a decision at all. Those are my decisions.
Yeah. Yeah. And in that
I
moment, it
mean,
doesn't give you that 6 or 7 seconds. It gives you much longer,
right? Yep.
because I clicked it just before it faded. And I was like, oh, I sat in that much longer than other moments. And yeah, and it was like, that's the kind of stuff I remember about this game and about the first, are moments like that rather than the supernatural set pieces. They're really great and everything,
Yeah.
but I'm playing this game and loving this game because of that stuff. So yeah,
I have a
know.
question.
Yes, please.
How does it compare to my favorite game by the studio, After Party? Because like that was
Oh,
probably their
great
peak.
question.
And
Ooh,
I
I'm
don't
gonna
know.
go get something. Steve, you start. I'm gonna get
While you
something
guys
when you
have been
start answering.
talking, I've been actually getting the games on my phone because I'm going to start playing Oxenfree tonight probably.
Nice.
But I've been at it. I've been, I don't know, hesitant just because After Party was probably my favorite game of that year. It was just so perfect. And then,
Yep.
is it more of that? Is it similar? Did they improve on things? Like that's what I'm kind of curious about.
I okay, so I love After Party. I think that's a fantastic game, and at the time I was like, "Oh, this is, this studio in its element." I think that they just exceeded my expectations
Yep.
in terms of what they could do. I don't know if this is necessarily them blowing it up and just saying, "Okay, listen, we've outdone ourselves yet again." But I think if you compare if you compare Lost Signals to Oxenfree 1, there's no
Yeah.
argument. This is a much more evolved and masterful game. whether or not you're going to come out of this and say, oh, I like After Party more or less, I think that's just creatively up to you. And like, there's things about After Party that this game doesn't even really do, like the mini games of After Party. There's none of that stuff here. This is more of just like the conversational aspect of After Party, which I guess it all has to do with like the genre, the characters. So I struggled to say which is better, because I think it all comes down to preferential opinion here. I personally, so far, I like the characters of Oxenfree 2 more than After Party. I'll say that.
Ooh, yeah, wow, that's a big.
But that's just me. I mean,
well, the two main characters in After Party are awesome. They're fun,
of course
right? They have great personalities, but just like the other games, the writing's great, the acting's great. Like, you know, all that stuff is obviously still present here. After Party, though, it's like, yeah, it's something about like the genre of it, because it's obviously a very different tone, and it's meant to be from the start. Like it's hilarious. The way that game starts is hilarious. It is one of the best beginnings and opening, 5 to 10 minutes of any game. I think it's so fun. I knew what I was getting into when I started that game, but I didn't realize it was going to start in that way, and I was hooked like right. It was so good. Yeah, I like the universe or the world of Oxenfree better, so I find it to be more my thing. But I thoroughly enjoyed After Party, so much to the fact that I went to go pick this up. I have my special vinyl of After Party, and it has the dual. Love that. Like it's so nice,
so good.
Yeah, so watch the YouTube version, people, because this is where you're going to see it. Like it's great. Wow, it's great. I have a couple special vinyls, but I don't have a record player. I'm that guy. So
now can I just say, this is a perfect segue to what I think is like one of the best elements of Lost Signals, which is the music.
Yeah, it's awesome. It's awesome. It's the same guy that did the first, same guy that did After Party. Like After Party is like a banging soundtrack too, by the way.
Oh, of course,
but it's so moody. I've already started listening to it today when it came out and everything.
Yep, me too.
Like, ooh,
nice. Yeah, that's a nice print.
My show and tell. Yeah, the music is incredible. The sound in general is really great in this. Yep. Like I think that the sound effects from the radio and the static, and even just sort of atmospheric sound as well, like when the music isn't there and it's a silent moment, they do a really good job of, they're not forcing you to feel a certain way, and to me, it always bugs me in TV shows and movies. It is what it is. You're not going to avoid this, but like, oh, this is a sad moment, here comes the piano, things like that. Like, I think it helps. It definitely, they do it on purpose. They do it because it works, but also in this, it doesn't work that way. It really just adds to the atmosphere. And there's so many subtle hints in the music, which I listened to almost the full album today while I was working and writing and stuff, which is perfect music for that. But I don't hear as many subtle notes from the original soundtrack in the recorded version. I could have just missed it because I wasn't like fully paying attention to all of it. But in the game, every once in a while, the music will kick in more in like these set piece moments, and you'll hear hints of the original soundtrack within those notes. And I'm like, oh yeah, I like that. It's good. It kind of hit me like in the feels. It's like, oh yeah, it's good.
Yeah, a little nostalgia.
Yeah, I was like, oh, this is great. It's a great soundtrack. I agree. Anyways, I went on more of a tangent than I was supposed to. Sorry, Steve. Go ahead.
No. Bobby, you had something you wanted to say?
I'm looking up the composer right now. So his name is Andrew Rohrman, better known as Scientific. Oh, and you guys probably know him because I'm just looking up his Wikipedia. He's worked on the Xbox 360 system software, so he did sound design for that. So you probably know some of his stuff when you're loading up your console. He worked on Rogue Legacy as a composer. He worked on Plants vs. Zombies 2, Galaxy, the Dimension, which I played and I thought was incredible.
Yeah, it's a great game.
Obviously, Oxenfree, Old Man's Journey, which is available on iOS, and it's incredible. He did After Party, Sneaky Sasquatch, Jet the Far Shore, and Oxenfree 2, and Gibbon Beyond the Trees. All as a composer. Yeah. So like all his games are indie games, but like they're really good indie games. So
yeah, Gibbon actually, I played that last year. It's a really like tight 1.5 to 2 hour game and has a lot to say. And again, very good on like atmosphere and everything, and the music definitely plays into that. So yeah, his stuff is great.
It's on Apple Arcade. So. I actually remember downloading it. I just haven't played it.
Oh, is it? Oh, okay. Cool. Nice. Oh, that actually reminds me, mobile Apple Arcade kind of thing. I know this is available on people's iPads and phones and everything on Netflix. I would say try not to play it on one of those devices if you have the choice. I mean,
you can connect a controller to it, so
that's true.
For me, it's more what you can see and hear. I think it's not the control, because the controls, I think it'd be fine. Like, I don't know if it's tap controls. I don't know if you can touch what the conversations
are. Well, the iPhone, and if you have an Apple TV, like, it has spatial audio. So, like, if you play it off your TV, which you could probably just tune into that. It'll play like you're playing on a console. So, like, there are ways around it, but so basically, you're saying is just don't play it exclusively on a phone or like a
or an iPad. Or an iPad. Like the iPad, maybe it's a bit bigger or whatever, but there's things to see here that are very cool. You know, like the art style is really nice. You know, the view is pretty far away from all the characters. So I can imagine on a smaller screen, it would kind of be hard to see sometimes, because it takes place mostly at night. It takes place in a very like foggy, small town island type thing. And, you know, that is great because it fits for the vibe of the game. But I think on a smaller screen, you're not going to get everything that this team put together. So that it's just a recommendation. I'm not saying it's like you have to do it that way. I get it. It's accessible. You're already paying for Netflix. Go for it. But, you know, the small fee that it takes to pay this, or smaller fee that it takes to play this on a console, for example, or like Bobby said, if you can do it on your TV, go for it. That I'd recommend that. So, I don't know. I don't want to talk too much about the story, Steve, because it's very easy to spoil things. But
for sure.
But I loved it. There was a couple of moments that I'll talk to you about maybe when you finish that. I could be like, oh, there was a couple things that I was fine with, but I was curious why they made that choice. But otherwise, I love this game. I think it's fantastic. So,
one other thing I want to talk about before we start wrapping up this conversation, because I thought it was a really great decision for them to make. It was something that I think impacted my enjoyment of the game as well, was the added traversal elements in this game, because it has like a much larger map. Now, as Riley, you actually like can climb, you know, walls, or not walls, but, you know, climb, you know,
sort of
a mountain. And then you also have like the rappel element there, so you can kind of just like scale down cliff sides and stuff like that with a lot of ease, and kind of just use that same rope to kind of go back in case you have to backtrack for collectibles or anything like that. That was the one thing with Oxenfree 1, was because you don't really run around in that game. It's all about, you know, living in the moment and kind of taking your time to kind of explore. But if there was the off chance that you did want to go back and stuff like that, you kind of had to go and just kind of plod your way through it, just at a very slow pace. So I like the fact that they added this like new element there, so that you can kind of get to point A to point B a little bit faster without it kind of speed running or kind of taking you out of the vibe of the game, with, you know, Riley running around and like jumping from cliffside to cliffside. It just makes it feel a little fresher and a little more fast paced, especially because there are elements where it's like, go through this one cave entrance and then go through a tunnel and then end up on this side, and then you got to climb up this way, and it's like there's a lot on the map, and I just appreciate the fact that now it's not just redo it over and over again.
Yeah, and it's not one of those maps, or even though it's a larger area and map compared to the first, as an example, it's not like you open up your map and there's all these question marks everywhere and there's all these things. You know, it's not delivered in that way.
No,
it's just like, this is a map that you would find at a general store in this little town, and it shows you where you are, and then you kind of gives you a rough idea, because it's like a hand-drawn map of where you need to go, and then you have a little notebook on the side that Riley's writing notes in, which is great. I love that sort of like immersive choice where it's not just this, you know, white text that pops up in the left hand of your screen to remind you what you need to do. You need to pull up your map, you need to look at her notebook, and it says try this, this, and this, and then she's crossing things off the list as you do them. I love that.
And she will make little notes on the map. And
the map, like, okay, yes. Oh my god.
Now I want to ask you one thing, and this isn't a spoiler for anyone, but did you embarrass yourself? There's a moment in this game, and this isn't a spoiler or anything. It's actually a really, I think, like endearing moment, and kind of just something that I really took away from.
Oh, you know what? I want to say yes.
Okay, I love that
I
part.
Say yes. Yeah.
There's a moment.
Yes, I did.
Yeah, there's a moment where you're able to kind of like jump across a gap, and even Jacob's like, "Oh, that might be too large of a gap to jump," and I was like, well, fuck it, I'm gonna do it anyways. Like, why not? And
screw you, Jacob.
she just doesn't make it, and all of a sudden she's like, "Oh well, I embarrassed myself," and then on the map she just writes, "Felt embarrassed here." And I was like, oh my god, it's just like such a cool like character moment, and also like a really cool gameplay moment, because again, that's something that theoretically you could just avoid by listening to Jacob.
Oh yeah, 100%, because it gives you the choice to take the longer way around.
Exactly, which
is only going to take you anyway. Which you actually have to do anyway. Yeah, exactly. But you can just choose to do that right away. And even like the rappelling and all that kind of stuff, like it's not just like, hey, we have equipment, let's just use it. It plays into their character, into both of them.
Yep.
Constantly, especially when you first get it. Jacob talks about it, Riley talks about it, and they have quips back and forth about it. Mm-hmm. Like at least once every half hour they say something about it, and it becomes like this sort of like inside joke between them, even though they kind of like meet each other for the first time in 25 years or whatever it is. So those things all play into why you feel like you're walking and rappelling and jumping with these characters. So it's excellent. Okay, Oxenfree 2, I think everyone should play it. I really do. I think it's just incredible. So Steve, I hope you enjoy your time with the ending and stuff, and maybe we'll touch back next week and we'll just sort of wrap up our like the final thoughts, and we'll see if we have to put a spoiler tag on it or not, but we'll get there next week and we'll talk about it. So
I wish I had the time to have finished it beforehand, but like I said, I got the code late and everything, and I'm very much enjoying it. I didn't want to like rush my way through it, so to speak, but so far, again, echoing your thoughts, I think people should go out and play this. It's like I said, it's a really masterful evolution of what the original game was, and a very charming indie game.
Yeah, exactly. Bobby, what have you been up to in the last 7-ish days?
Unfortunately, I can't talk about what I'm playing still. It feels like it's been a month, and it's just like
I think it has been.
The embargo's like slowly creeping up, but like I've been like knee deep in this game, and just trying to live to tell another tale. Because I mean, it. Can I say anything? Can I? I don't know.
I doubt it.
They're gonna send assassins after me.
Don't do it. Don't do it.
I already see the red dot coming across your forehead.
No, I will. I'll talk about it. Yeah,
he's like, have another week. Smell is like green gas coming up. What's that smell?
Man, yeah, they'll probably cuff my power.
He wants to talk so bad. Oh God, sorry, man. I feel bad.
Yeah, break the embargo. Go ahead.
Yeah, no, they're gonna. Yeah, they'll cut my credit in half and just like destroy me. So it's
cut your credit in half. They have the power.
They do. I mean, they're a big company. So, but no. So it's literally a week from today. So,
all right,
we'll
be able to talk about it next week.
Be able to record it by then. But yeah,
all right,
I've been playing it. It's great. Anything I can talk about? I've been trying to platinum Final Fantasy 16 just because. I mean,
nice.
It's hard. I've been playing Final Fantasy.
Yeah, is it a tough task?
Oh yeah, it's just learning how to dodge and counter and parry, and it's a lot of fun. But yeah, that's pretty much like the main thing I've been doing. And I don't know why I haven't touched Diablo yet, but something's wrong with me.
There's no point until the 20th.
At this point, it won't really matter. Like you're just gonna play through the story, and then you're gonna get into the season. The season seems like it's gonna last forever. Like so, I think you'll have lots of time. Just because people have completed the main quest line and stuff doesn't mean you're behind. Honestly, it really doesn't.
So not say behind. It's just getting accustomed to it, because it's been like how many a month? It's been like it launched a month ago. I haven't touched it in 2 months, so it's just like, I gotta get to it. And plus Baldur's Gate, like I want to play Baldur's Gate. That's for sure something I want to play. And then I just spent a bunch of money on Steam at the sale, and I have Dave the
I
Dive
spent
Raft
some
play
Steam money
now.
too. Yep.
Yeah, it's just like I bought 12 games. I doubt I'm gonna play them.
12. Okay, never mind.
Yeah.
No, I splurged this time because it was like, well, this one's only $8. This one's 12, and then next thing you know, I'm checking out and it's like $104, and it's like, well, okay. But I got
Terrible.
Dave the
when you
Diver. I
break it
got
down.
Pizza Tower. Pizza Tower is something I'm looking forward to. I don't know if you guys have seen that, but it's like a Wario Land clone, and
That's cool.
It's been So, and what else did I pick up? I picked up something really, really cool. I just gotta find what it was called because it was like one of those games where, on a whim, I was like, okay, what is it? And it is called. Give me a second.
Sure.
While you find that, I will say the one thing that I bought is a bundle of a bunch of Indiana Jones games.
Oh, that's awesome.
Cool.
Yeah, it has all the like Last Crusade. It has all the ones that were like out for 64 and PlayStation, all the old ones. It was like I think it was like 6 games for $7 or something like that. And I was like,
why the hell not? Yeah.
Yeah, like it was like 50 cents for some of the games. Like, I'm just gonna buy the whole bundle. I remember playing Last Crusade. I remember playing one of the ones for. I mean, I don't think any of those point and click LucasArts ones are in there. It's all the other ones.
Yeah, like the action ones.
Yeah, all the action, the third person ones and stuff. I was like, fine, cool. I love Indiana Jones, so I'm going to go for it.
It's called This Way Madness Lies. It's apparently a Shakespeare cross Magical Girls RPG, and apparently it's been getting crazy reviews. But
crazy so did Diablo 4. So just letting everyone know that Bobby is going to be playing. What was it? Magic Girls, Shakespeare Magic Girls.
This Way Madness Lies.
Oh, okay.
Filled with magical girls and Shakespeare. As the leader of the Stratford upon Avon High Drama Society, Imogen is no ordinary girl. She goes to school every other day and helps produce plays for the community. But beyond that, she's a magical girl. That's actually the description. With her power, she can teleport to alternate dimensions based on Shakespeare plays, fight back the forces of nightmare, and still get back in time for dinner. If that doesn't sound Game of the Year to you, sorry. Like I best $8 I've ever spent, I think.
Steve, what's wrong with us, man? I think that's really the question here.
That's true.
This is a Dennis game, guys. If we can say anything, this sounds like a Dennis game.
Man,
you can't say it doesn't.
Yeah,
I don't know.
No, you're totally right. We should get Dennis to review it.
Although I will say, you guys could chirp me about this decision too, but I hear another podcast. This was like a couple months ago. I put it on my wish list. I heard about a game called 111 Operator or something, or 112 Operator. I don't have Steam pulled up, so I'll find it. Anyways, basically it is like you run like the emergency services of a city, and it's over the top sort of RTS view kind of thing. But what's cool about it, and the reason why I wanted to play it, was because you can choose what city you're in, and it gives you a 1-to-1 scale of what city you're going to be operating in. Now, I haven't played it yet, so I don't know how perfect it is, but I could say I'm from Toronto, and it will give you a map of Toronto, and you'll be able to play and operate emergency services within Toronto. So it'll say there's an issue on Yonge Street at Adelaide, and that's like, I'll be like, I know exactly where that is and how to get there. Whatever. And you'll be
there's another stabbing on the TTC. Oh, let me send the police.
Yeah,
it's too realistic for me.
So I was like, oh, that's kind of a cool idea for like the couple of bucks that it cost me when it was like 90% on sale. I was like, that's worth a shot. So I don't know. Maybe it's not going to be great, but I was like, that's a cool concept and cool idea.
That's a very cool concept.
Yeah, I don't know what the gameplay's like, but I thought that idea of that part of it anyway was entertaining. So
that's neat. Yeah. It's like that game where it's like, oh, it's the apocalypse. What are the chances that Toronto will survive? And you play it and you're like, oh, none.
Nice. Well, we're the first to go.
Yeah.
Why can't it be Vancouver though? Vancouver sucks. Sorry, guys. They gotta go first.
Come on, let's be real. It's Quebec that's got to go first.
Well, they're not Canadian. They're French Canadian, so they don't count.
They don't.
They really don't. If we're being honest, they really don't.
Count, right? So they
they don't. Yeah, so many of them don't want to. So, okay, I'm gonna. Okay, I want to tell you about a game.
Yeah.
That is if you want to play a game right now, Bobby, that is not Diablo, that is not Magic Girl in between school classes, Shakespeare stuff, and you don't want it to eat up too much of your time, you're going to want to play. Let's see if you guys can hear this on the thing. It's pretty low. Anyways, it is. If you know who's looking at the screen, it is Grimace's birthday.
My boy.
Grimace's birthday. Yep. So
is that a cursed game? That's a cursed game. I don't play cursed games because we know what happens.
Oh, don't worry. It is well worth it. So about a month ago, I think it was mid-June or so, it was Grimace's birthday. He's, I don't know, 30, 35. I don't know what the number is. McDonald's decided to make a whole thing out of it, right? They went and had the shake. They were advertising like crazy. And one of the things they did was they partnered with a studio. I'll try to find the name in a second here. That created a Game Boy Color game. They created a Game Boy Color game. That Cruel Toys Limited is the name. And they didn't just create a Game Boy Color game like, oh, hey, look, the graphics are kind of pixelated and it's, you know, McDonald's, yay, advertisement. Yes, it is technically advertisement, but you could play this on what I was holding up on the screen. If anyone's watching the video version, is an Ambernic device, which has ROMs on it and everything. Mm-hmm. They released the ROM for free, so you can literally play it on devices like this. They didn't release the ROM. Cool. You could just like, you know, keep it on your computer. I mean, you can play it on your computer on the browser, but if you want to have a controller in your hand and a handheld device, I was able to do that with this. It is like the smallest file of mankind. You load it on the device, and I spent about 15 minutes playing it and quote unquote completed the whole thing, and it was just a joy.
Yeah,
it was awesome.
So Dave, when you were explaining the game, I had to run away because I also have a show and tell because, like you, I'm a very big supporter of our boy Grimace. You know, it was his birthday. So when McDonald's earlier this year came out with their Peace Collective collaboration with McDonald's, I had to get my boy Grimace on a sweater.
Amazing!
Oh my god!
Yeah. Look at that guy. Look, imagine waking up and seeing that above your bed. Wouldn't that be just the worst thing possible?
I thought I was going to say what could be worse is maybe waking up next to that thing, but you know, whatever.
I just mean like in the corner of your bedroom at like 2 a.m, and you're just standing there with that dumb, stupid face on.
They should
purple
really
face.
A movie. Like Five Nights at Freddy's with Grimace. Just like,
listen. I don't know if you guys have kept up with it, but during last month with the Grimace shake on TikTok, that trend is probably one of the best thing the internet. Dave, you have to go.
I missed it, man. I missed it.
What Bobby's talking about, like the horror movie,
they've done a good job with like this marketing.
It was, yeah. When we were talking earlier before the show about like they went super hard on marketing and everything. TikTok did it all for them. Because what they did with the Grimace shake trend is one of the funniest things I think I've seen the internet ever take a hold of and just run with it.
All right. You know what? Maybe I saw it, but I didn't see it in that context or didn't realize maybe could have been part of it. I wouldn't be surprised.
Essentially what it is like people would take a sip of the Grimace shake, wish him a happy birthday, and then it would turn into like a Blair Witch style horror movie with like Grimace just murdering them. Go on TikTok. It's hysterical and super unhinged.
I may have seen one of those, but didn't realize what it was for. But again, this was like roughly a month ago, maybe 3 weeks ago or something. So, but I will say the game is not that. The game is not that.
Okay.
It is not, which is sort of like even better that it sort of grew. Like the idea is so different because this is. I mean, I suppose it's McDonald's. They're going to make it like kid friendly and whatever, right? You're Grimace on a skateboard and you are just going from left to right or right to left and you're jumping over a couple obstacles. The obstacles are either birds or I don't know, other sort of animals you might find on like a rooftop. He's like skateboarding on rooftops for some reason. Or like an old school McDonald's garbage can that you used to see like in the 80s and 90s.
Oh, no way. Yeah.
Yeah, which is cool. I was like, what is that? And then I jumped over the next because I hit one. I was like, I thought it was just in the background, but it was the foreground. Anyways, knocks you over. You don't really get a penalty. It just sort of slows you down or whatever.
Grimace breaks his ankle.
Yeah. Oh, just blood splatters. Hamburger comes in with like a
stretcher.
Kit. Yeah. And then you get to play as Ronald. No. So it's really just like it's left to right or right to left because you can sort of like semi backtrack a little bit and stuff, and you're just you just jump on onto like rails, like pipes and things like that, and you pick up Grimace shakes. The more you pick up, the more points you get. Then there's like a time trial version that just gives you, I think it's like 2 or 3 minutes or something, and the more every time you pick up one of those shakes, it extends your time and it calculates your points essentially, and you can set your own high scores and stuff like that. But like if you play the regular one, you play through like 3 or 4 little stages. Each one takes like maybe 3 minutes. It's not difficult. It's really just there to get you from A to B and try and see what your score is. Again, when you hit something, you just kind of slow down. You don't like have a health bar or hearts or any of that kind of stuff. You can just pick up where you left off and just go. He grinds automatically, or you can choose in the options, I think, to press down or something in order to grind. So it's very forgiving in all that way. And it's just charming. It's just awesome that the fact that a Game Boy Color game is available, 25 years after the device came out. And I think that's the cool part to me. Is the interesting part is all this like talk in recent weeks about, and really in recent days as of this recording, about how so little retro games are available in physical form. If you go from, I think it's like 2015 back to the 80s and the 70s and stuff, it's so difficult because a lot of these games, the ROMs are just not available. And I don't mean ROM as in like illegally download it and play it on any device you want. I just mean available so that it can be preserved. Like it's like 85% or something like that are not available. And that's insane. And then there's team ups like this, that it's a giant corporation of McDonald's and everything, but I think it's great that they went back to something like a Game Boy Color as opposed to, hey, here's just a browser flash game that anybody could have done really easily, or throw it on Apple Arcade or Netflix that is just a throwaway or whatever. Sure, you can play it on your phone and on your browser, but it is all in the music, the theme, the style, the pixelated graphics, the color schemes. Everything really does feel like you're playing it on a Game Boy Color. It's very short. If you have a way to play it on a handheld like I did on one of these emulation devices, I recommend playing it that way. But if you want to just play in your browser, go for it. Play in your browser. It's fun. Gives you puts a little smile on your face for 15 minutes, and then you can move on. But
I'm gonna wait for the Xbox port and get achievements. I'm gonna game like a big boy here.
Personally, I'm disappointed we didn't get a sequel to McKids.
McKids, what is that?
I hope you guys know what I'm talking about. You guys don't know what that is?
I have no idea.
Game.
Are you guys for real? Okay.
Oh, I know what this is. Yes, I know what this is.
A licensed Nintendo game for McDonald's from the 90s. And it was like an amazing platformer to the point where, it is literally a Super Mario 3 like clone. It is,
of course, it is
so good. Actually,
well, you can buy it right now if you have an NES. You can buy it on eBay for $5.
For $5,
what?
I can buy.
I
don't know, a hash brown and make a sausage. I don't know. I'd rather eat. Sorry, I'm just gonna.
I don't know, man.
I mean, I kind of want to just buy it for $5.
Some are 30, some are 5. I don't know. I don't know if it's authentic. I don't know what the deal is, but quick search.
But no,
what, Bobby? Like you want to have. Yeah, I mean, you could do that. You want to have your McDonald's breakfast. You want to eat a McDonald's. I think either way, it's going to cost you about the same amount of money, and either way, I think you might feel sick at the end of it. So I don't know.
The game, yes. But look at McKids. It is such a throwback for me. I just remember.
Yeah, I do remember this now. Yeah, I do remember.
It tied in because I remember back in the night. Well, in the early 90s, there was those McDonald's I don't know, what were they, movie tie-ins? Like you could watch actual movies with Ronald and his group of friends.
Yep.
I think there's like a Treasure Island one. Do you remember these videos?
I do. Yeah.
I do. Yeah. 100%. I would rent them all the time.
Yeah.
But Make Kids, man, geez, that was a great game.
Virgin Games, like the Virgin company. Like what?
Apparently, crazy. It was.
Oh, you could play 2 players. That's great.
It was created by 4 people in 8 months. That's insane.
It looks like it.
Whoa! This is iconic. This is like Mario level iconic NES game.
Yeah.
Okay, Shakespeare School. I don't know. I mean, I do remember it though. I do remember it. Like I say that, but I remember it.
It can't be worse than Grimace's birthday, whatever.
But Grimace's birthday wasn't bad. It was just short. It's just a fun little thing. I think it's worth your time. I think it's worth your 10 minutes to get set up if you have a device, or your 0 minutes to get set up, and then it's 15 minutes. Literally 15 minutes if you want to play the time trial on top of that and the high score version of the game. If you don't do that, I think my playthrough was like 6 minutes. Like it's quick, it's fast, and it's just I don't know. I think it was cool. I just love, like I said, I love the whole like, oh, it's a Game Boy Color game. I just love that idea. That's why it sort of hit home for me a little bit more. But anyways, I need to get back to Final Fantasy VII, guys. Sorry, I haven't yet.
All right.
I'm still in a few hours.
Yeah,
I will report back.
You got some time.
I got some time. But I think I'm
about
about 7 or 8 hours in, something like that. So I'm getting there. So we've launched TikTok over the last couple of weeks. We have some videos on there. I have a really quick, brief sort of overview of a review of Oxenfree 2, for example, and we'll have clips sometimes up there of the podcast and some news items and stuff. Like we did something for when the Nintendo Direct launched and everything, so things like that. So watch out for us on TikTok now. It's a newer page, but we're available there. I guess
Threads now. We're on Threads now.
Threading.
I was just going to
be
say,
on Blue Sky soon. Once I get an invite, so I can make an account.
There we go. So, and all of those, I guess we're trying to grab console creatures, right? I guess, Bobby. I guess that's how it's gonna. I mean, you got to try, right?
Try it. If not, we'll just rebrand.
Rebrand across the board.
Creatures.
Creatures.
McCreature's kids.
Yeah.
I mean, it's already there. It says, MC Kids. It's kind of it's in the name. It's right there.
I mean,
so
we got to try. But whatever. We'll see how that goes.
Worth it. I'd say hashtag worth it, but I feel like hashtags are nothing now. So
not on Threads.
I don't even know what to do with them anymore. Like no one uses them anymore. So it's like
no one uses them. Yeah. Well, and I don't think that maybe they aren't anywhere anymore.
Even on Instagram.
Yeah. So it's a whole thing. We're out there. We're trying to expand like everybody else and trying to figure it out. I don't know. Steve, you got your name everywhere. Where can everyone find you?
Everywhere, man. Yeah, you can find me all across the internet by typing in @Asfigvari on your favorite social media platform.
Which could be anything at this point.
Could be anything, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. As I expand, I'll be at Dave Petro. I'll keep my stuff the same if I can. And then, Bobby, I guess we're doing all like. What about yours? And what about console creature stuff?
God, it's so hard to keep up anymore. Like
I know.
Like Threads, I got console creature. We got console creature. It's not like console creature on Twitter. It's hard to keep up. So best thing you can do is pick your favorite platform. Click our link tree, and I'll put everything in there. You'll find us on all platforms. And then you can find me at B Pashalides, and I've also got our link tree in there. So like legitimately, you'll find all of us from that one link. So just find me, and you'll find everyone.
Yeah, and you know what? We'll put that link and the links that we have available and stuff in the description of this podcast as well. I think that's also something too, so you don't have to search for it in any other way. You can just click on it on your phone or your device or wherever you're listening to it. So until next time, everybody, Steve, Bobby, thanks for coming along for the ride and chatting about skateboarding Grimace. And thanks everyone for listening. We'll talk to you next week. Ciao.
Bye.